The Day Trip from Sand, issue 14. The air outside the car windows already has an early spring tone here, sun-warmed, but not yet fully soft, still vaguely fragile. If this were home, there would be late forsythia, early daffodils. Instead, trees bright with lemons flash by. Above the fields, then suddenly quite close, white surveillance blimps float overhead, filming the sky. Heading south, they become more frequent until Toby's father eventually stops pointing them out. When the peace comes, his father says 5, 6 times. When the peace comes, then he coughs. Toby's father is narrating our trip. He's just seen the doctor. Something is wrong with his lungs. When the peace comes, this field will be, this land will be, he says again. Then he coughs. We pass through towns where every bus stop boasts its own concrete bomb shelter. And there, his father points, is a kibbutz that took lots and lots of rockets these last 8 years during then the cough. We drive and look. Stopping at a persimmon tree, he jumps out to the road's edge and begins gathering fallen fruit. I join him. They're tiny, mottled orange globes. He's faster at collecting than I am. Soon he has 2 handfuls and presses them into my palms, cupping his own hands around mine as if I were a child. Coffee, he asks. At a gas station, he comes out with 3 cups of espresso. Just here, he says, pointing beyond the parking lot. 40,000 people were crossing this road every day in both directions before, and his nose goes into the coffee cup. This was the border crossing, says Toby, the checkpoint. Now, on a Saturday afternoon, there are tourists, droves of them, parked below a mound of earth, the highest point on the plain from which you can look into Gaza. There on that hill, his father points, were 12, 15 rockets falling every day during the, he clears his throat, the events, the disturbance, the unrest, the incursion, the invasion, the war? Is he waiting for Toby to finish his phrase? Have you boys had lunch yet? He asks. Toby and I look at each other, somewhat guiltily, as his mother had fed us before we left, and I let Toby answer no. The smack of a meat tenderizer on chicken flesh sounds at the counter behind us. My own father ate lunch at this restaurant every day for 15 years, says his father, because his office was just across the street. Toby's mother had walked us along this same block of the city that morning, strolling back and forth on our way past the Travelers' Insurance Office and the Money Changers, the Russian Quarter, the town's first shopping center, and the first dry goods store, past the same restaurants she must have known his father would take us to later today. Each of them has taken us on their own tour of the old town's same 5 blocks, each claiming their own stake in our minds, a space is central to the other's life, tracing nebulous trails that overlap in the ways they must when 2 people live in the same space for decades, yet no longer share its sights. Toby's father drops us off at his mother's building after lunch, then sits in the car across the parking lot till we reach the door. In the entry hall, Toby presses the button for the elevator with an angry, sudden jerk, his lips curled. He said his girlfriend was coming with us today. That's why my mother didn't come. Through the doors, we watch his father's car pull away slowly, as if it were moored to the earth like those surveillance blimps, tracing its route back to his own apartment, a few blocks away. When the peace comes, I think. 5 floors up, his mother's living room is papered with yellow roses. In a corner behind the dining table sits a collection of vases with silk and plastic flowers, sun-bleached like everything by the louvered windows on the apartment's south side. The side one avoids when a siren sounds. After showing us how to use the coffee maker in the oven, she'd explained that. When you hear the siren, you have 5 seconds, counting like this, she'd said, showing us by slowly counting off the numbers on the fingers of one hand, to get to the stairwell. These days, apartments are less expensive on this side of the building. Outside, a sandy park stretches to the next building, then the next. Low rows crowding the horizon so you wouldn't guess the city has any real end.